Hello again, this is Tavisha Raymond Mhlongo, the Life Science Tutor for Limitless Academic Support and Leadership Academy. So today we are going to start a new topic which is about genetics and inheritance. So we are now going to the second term work. So I've just written a few words that I'm going to start explaining today, which is heredity, inheritance, genetics, genes, phenotype and genotype, alleles, dominant and recessive, homozygous and heterozygous. So these are the words that we're going to start with today. So they're like subtopics that you're going to deal with. So as I'm doing the introduction, you're going to encounter all those words as we continue with the topic of genetics and inheritance. So under this topic, we learned in the first term that we have a DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid, and then it codes for some things that happen in our body. And then we learned about meiosis, which is the division of cells and the production of gametes. And then we also learned about human reproduction. So what we are going to do now, we are going to understand how DNA codes for the things that we have. How do we get those things that we have from our parents? So it's a link. All these topics link together. DNA links all the topics. So in order for you to make a better or have a better understanding of this topic, you need to know that from term 1, the first day you went into matric, the first topic, all the way up to this topic, they all link. It's just an addition from what you already know. You started with DNA, and then you learned that DNA, we get cells that need to have all the DNA from both parents. And then we learned that after the DNA has been divided into all gametes, and then we learned how it happens that a cell from the mother and the father come together, and then they unite to form a human again. So now we are going to understand that from the fusion of the gametes, how are then these characteristics? How do we get them from our parents, and then they are able to come, and we are able to have them in our phenotype? Okay. So the first few words that we need to understand is heredity. So when we are talking about heredity, we are talking about the transmission of characteristics from parent to offspring. So heredity, this, as I've written there, it's the transmission of characteristics from parents to offspring. I'm sure we all know that offspring means children. Okay, so when we are talking about heredity, we are talking about the actual process of transmitting those characteristics from the parents, and then as they go to the next generation. So the next generation would be your parents, and then you are the next generation from your parents. So the process of transmission, how were they able to transmit those characteristics from them to you as they had gained their own from their parents? And then we also have inheritance. When we talk about inheritance, the transmission has occurred. So now when we talk about inheritance, we are talking about the set of characteristics. So now when we talk about inheritance, we are talking about the set of characteristics that we have gotten from our parents, that have been passed on, from parents to offspring. So we all know that inheritance, in general English, in general knowledge. We know that when we're talking about inheritance, and then in English we call it inheritance. It's what your parents have left you. So like when they write their will, then they say, okay, if anything should happen to us, then the house, the cars, the money, everything should go into our child in heaven. That is inheritance. So it's the set of characteristics. It's the things that your parents leave you with. Okay? So when you're talking about inheritance, it's in terms of genetics, you're talking about the characteristic that you have gained from your parents, the trait that you have gained. It could be the eye color, the hair color, the height, and everything that you are. And then when you talk about genetics, we are talking about the study of heredity, variation, and the variation that occurs in the transmission of hereditary characteristics. But the one that I like, which is much more easier, when we're talking about genetics, it's the study of similarities and differences between related individuals. So it's the study of similarities and differences between related individuals. So that is genetics. So when we are talking about genetics, we are looking at the things that are more or less the same or different between related individuals. And then you ask yourself, how is it that they say humans evolved from apes? It's because we have certain similarities. Yes, we are different phenotypically, but then when we go down into our genes, there are some similarities that we share. So we are studying that in genetics. We are looking at a deeper part or portion of an organism. We're not only looking at the outward appearance, but we are going deep into the genes, deep into the alleles that make up the gene. Okay, and then we have a gene. What is a gene? What is a gene? When you hear the word a gene, not a genie, but a gene. When we're talking about a gene, it's one of those cartoon things where you rub the lamp and then pops the genie. Then you make 3 wishes. But we are not talking about a genie, we are talking about a gene. When we are talking about a gene, you remember that in DNA, when we talk about a chromosome, we say a chromosome, it's a protein histone, and then wrapped around the protein histone is DNA strand that make up the chromosome. And then we also say that a DNA codes for something. It's a code of life. And then we also know one of the functions of DNA is that one of its functions is to transmit hereditary characteristics from parent to offspring. How does DNA do that? That's because when we're talking about a gene, we are talking about a particular length of DNA. So when we say we are talking about a particular length of DNA, that means in the DNA strand, the whole DNA strand, there's a particular length of DNA. So if a particular length of DNA, what does the particular length of DNA do? It's a particular length of DNA found at a particular location on a chromosome. Okay, when we talk about the particular location of the chromosome, position, let's say position, particular position on a chromosome. Okay, this position that we find our DNA strand in, it's called a locus. So It's a particular length of DNA, that means a certain length of DNA, found at a particular location on a chromosome. Yes, you know, it's a particular length of DNA, it's found on a particular position of a chromosome. But then, what does it do? We know where it's found, we know what it is, but what does it do? That influences is a particular characteristic. So we know that it influences a particular characteristic. When we don't want to say a particular characteristic, we can say a trait. But it would be much easier to understand when you say a characteristic. So now we know what a gene is. A gene is a particular length of DNA. So that means a certain portion or part of DNA found at a particular position. That position that we call a locus, found at a particular position on a chromosome. Where is this position at? It's in a chromosome. That influences a particular characteristic. So we know that a gene, for something to be a gene, it needs to be a particular length of DNA found in a chromosome. And what does that thing do? It influences a particular characteristic. So that is what a gene is. If you are looking for a shorter one, you can say a portion of DNA that codes for a particular characteristic. Yes, we do know it's a bit shorter, but it doesn't tell you the location of the chromosome. So we need to understand it. Okay, for example, when we are talking about a particular length of DNA found at a particular position on a chromosome that influences a particular characteristic. When we are talking, I'm going to use an example that is already in the book. The book that I'm using right now is Understanding Life Sciences, grade 12, that edition, which is KEP's prescribed book. Okay, so I'm just going to read what it is written down and then I'm going to explain it. Each gene has a particular position called its locus. I'll explain that on a particular chromosome. For example, in humans, the gene for eye color is at a particular position on chromosome number 8 in all individuals. So that is the position of the gene that is for eye color. It's found in chromosome number 8. So the location, the locus for that gene would be chromosome 8. Okay, let's continue. Whereas the gene for straight or curly hair is on a particular position on chromosome 17. So it's on a particular position on which chromosome? Chromosome 17. That is where we find the gene for curly hair, for straight or curly hair. Okay, so since diploid cells have homologous chromosomes, there will be 2 copies of the gene for eye color. So because we know that we are diploids, we have diploidic cells. So diploidic cells, what does that mean? Diploidic cells, when we talk about a diploid, it means it has a 2N. That means it has two things that control that gene. We have one part from the father and the other part from the mother. So that's what it means. Okay. Other genes control psychological characteristics, like the way which the bodies of living organisms work. So they control how our bodies function. And then some genes control structural characteristics like the eye color, blood type, and hair color. So we have those type of genes. But then again, we have something called a monogenic inheritance and a polygenic inheritance. It's still part of a gene. So when we talk about monogenic inheritance. Take mono. We know that mono means one, right? So when we're talking about monogenic inheritance, we are talking about a characteristic that is controlled by a single gene at a single position, on a chromosome. So it's a single gene. It's a single gene found at a single position. At a single position on a chromosome. So that is monogenic inheritance. It's a single gene found at a single position on a chromosome. So when we're talking about position again, we are talking about what? Locus. We are talking about locus. A locus. And then we have another thing which is a polygenic inheritance. Polygenic inheritance. What is polygenic inheritance? Take poly, which means many. So that will just tell you, since we have dealt with monogenic inheritance, and then when we're talking about polygenic inheritance, we are talking about characteristics that may be controlled by more than one gene found at different loci, at different positions. So here it's found a single gene found at a single position on a chromosome. But polygenic, what? It's more than one gene found at different positions, We do know that a singular, it's called locus. But then when you're talking about the plural, we are talking about a loci. We no longer call it a locus. We say it's a loci. Okay, so when it's more than one gene found at a different loci on one or more chromosomes. On one or more chromosomes. So that is polygenic inheritance. It's a characteristic that is controlled by more than one gene. I don't know the meaning here. Characteristic that is controlled by more than one gene. Same goes here, monogenic inheritance. It's a characteristic controlled by a single gene. Okay, I forgot to write that thing, but okay. So that is polygenic and monogenic inheritance. So now let's go to the next two words that are going to be working together throughout genetics and inheritance. And even when you are doing your process, they are always there. And those two words are phenotype and genotype. So what is a phenotype? What is a genotype? I'm sure you have guessed by now, since we have genome, that means it has to do with a gene, something that has to do with a gene. So what is a phenotype? What is a phenotype? When you talk about a phenotype, phenotype, what is a phenotype? When we are talking about a phenotype, we are talking about the outward, the physical appearance of an organism. That is what a phenotype is. So the external appearance of an organism is what is a phenotype. So what I see when I look at you, what you see when you look in the mirror, that is your phenotype. A phenotype is the outward appearance, the outward expression of a gene, the outward, out of words I could say, but it's the outward, the physical appearance of an organism. So it's the external or physical appearance of an organism. So it's the outward or the physical appearance of an organism. It's what, since you know when you're talking about physical things, it's things that we can touch, things that we can see. So when you're talking about a phenotype, it's what we can see, what we can feel when we touch you. That is the outward appearance of a gene. But then, what determines the phenotype? When we're talking about a genotype, what is a genotype? We know that the genotype influences the phenotype, but what is it? So when we're talking about a genotype, we're talking about the genetic makeup of an organism. We are talking about the genetic composition or makeup. If you don't want to use makeup, you can say genetic composition of an organism. So, let me see. This phenotype is determined by the DNA in the gene that influences a particular characteristic. This is referred to as the genetic composition of an individual and is known as a genotype. It can thus be said that genotype determines the phenotype. So the genotype determines the phenotype. So your genetic composition, your genetic makeup is what influences, it's what determines your phenotype. It's what gives the final verdict. It's like you're in a court and then you have the magistrate there, then with that little hammer thing, and then the magistrate is your genetic makeup, and then they put on the final verdict for guilty or not. But in this case, we're not looking for guilty or not, we're just looking for your physical appearance. It's your genetic makeup, it's your genotype, the magistrate, they order now. So it's what, when the hammer hits, it's what determines the physical appearance. What we see when we look at you. What we remember about you. Yeah, what we remember, what you see. What you see in the mirror. So that is the phenotype and the genotype. And then after the genotype and the phenotype, we have something we call alleles. What a lovely amazing name. Alleles. Easy to pronounce, easy to say, it's alleles. Alleles. It's like some sort of a creature, a young, beautiful creature. So in this case, this young, beautiful creature, what is an allele? So let's make an example. When we have flowers, let me see that, flowers. Flower color. When you talk about flower color, we have red, we have white, we have blue, we have all sorts of colors. When we talk about height, we have tall or short. So, okay. I'm sure you are wondering, what does color and height and short or tall have to do with adults? Okay. When we talk about flower color, for example, may be controlled by a single gene. The length of DNA making up the gene may code for red color or white flower color. And then we therefore say there are many alternative forms of the same gene. So these we have the color, right? And then red, white, blue, and all those colors are the many forms that the color of a plant can be expressed. So it's the alternative forms. The gene we are talking about right now, it's the gene for color. And then the gene for color may have alternative forms. The alternative forms of colors that we have that are actually expressed in the plant. So when we talk about a gene, we are talking about alternative forms of a gene found in the same locus and providing different expressions of a characteristic. So when we're talking about a gene, it's alternative forms of a gene. So they are alternative forms, they alternate. The alternative forms of a gene of this found in the same locus. You already know what the locus is, the same locus. Okay, we know that alternative forms of a gene found in the same locus. But then, when they are found in the same locus, what do? They provide let me remind myself. And they provide different expressions of a gene. They give different expressions or alternate or different expressions of a characteristic. So when you're talking about an allele, we are talking about alternative forms of a gene found in the same locus and provide different expressions of a characteristic. So let's go back to height and color. We have height, which is a characteristic. So height is a characteristic, but the alternative forms of height are what? It's either you are tall or you are short, right? So when you are tall or short, these are the alternative forms of the gene. They are found in the same locus, and then they provide different expressions of the characteristic, which is what? Which is height. Same as color. Color is the characteristic, and then you have alternative forms of color, and then they give different expressions of the characteristic, which is color. Okay, so how does it happen? Okay, let's say when we express them, you can either have two alleles for tall, or two alleles for short. Or you can have one for tall and one for short. So how does that come about? How does that happen? So we can define genotype as a combination of alleles that an individual possesses for particular characteristics. Okay, so let's move to, and then again, remember when we are talking about alleles, we do now understand that it's alternative forms. Example is height. How does that happen? That we know that for it is two traits, and then since a person, as I said, we are diphthongs, so that would mean all our alleles go in twos. Then how does it happen that whenever we are born, we still have the same two alleles? What happens when division, the meiosis, when meiosis occurs, we inherit one allele for each. So at the end of my meiosis, the cells that are produced each have one allele for a characteristic. They all have one form of the gene. So when fusion occurs, we get one allele from the mother, one allele from the father, and then they fuse, and then we have our diploids. Okay. And now we are going to the next part, which is dominant and recessive. So when we talk about dominance and recessivity, what are we talking about exactly? What does being dominant and being recessive have to do with genotype, with genetics? Being dominant and being recessive, those are English words. What do they have? What role do they have in genetics and inheritance? We already know that we have alleles, right? So when we talk about dominant and recessive, alleles can either be dominant or recessive. Okay, alleles can be dominant and recessive. Dominant and recessive. Okay, when we have dominant and recessive, when we talk about dominant and recessive, we are talking about alleles. The alternative forms of a gene can either be dominant or recessive. Okay, alternative forms of a gene can be dominant and recessive. What does that mean? So when we talk about a dominant thing, just from general knowledge, when you talk about a dominant thing, it means it's the stronger one. It's the one that is out there, that is seen by everyone, right? And then, so a dominant allele is the allele, it's the stronger allele, or the allele that is not masked by other alleles. It is expressed in the phenotype. So when you talk about dominant and recessive, a dominant allele is the one that is expressed on the phenotype, whether it's in a homozygous state or in a heterozygous state. So what does that mean? I'm still going to explain those two words. So the alleles of a gene may interact with each other in three ways: complete dominance, incomplete dominance, codominance, which may lead in different phenotypic expressions. Later we will understand, we'll see this differ from incomplete dominance and codominance. Okay. So, and then we have a recessive allele. What is a recessive allele? A recessive allele is the one that is weak. You can say it's weak because of the lack of a better word. So, which means it's the opposite of the dominant allele. It is masked by the dominant one. It is masked by the dominant allele. So we have dominant alleles and recessive alleles. Okay. Let's go to homozygous and heterozygous. So we have dominant and recessive alleles. And now we are talking about homozygous and heterozygous. What does that mean? Ooh, like science and in big words. Okay, we have homozygous, we have hetero. We have homo, and then we have hetero. Hetero. We have homo, zygous, and heterozygous. So why? Please try and make a connection throughout the words that I have explained. So when we're talking about homozygous and then heterozygous, homo, we all know it means what? The same. It means the same. Homo. And then we know that hetero means different. So we now know that we have a gene. A gene has alternative forms, and then those alternative forms can either be dominant or recessive. And now we are talking about homozygous and heterozygous. What does that mean? So let's backtrack a bit. When we talk about a dominant allele, it's the one that we use a capital letter to show. So we use a capital letter for a dominant allele, and then for a recessive allele, we use a lowercase letter for a recessive allele. Okay, so homozygous, heterozygous, and now we are being told capital letters and lowercase letters. What does that have to do with anything? So when we talk about homozygous, it means the alleles are in the same state. It's either they are both alleles. When you talk about homozygous, that means both alleles are either dominant or they are both recessive. So when you talk about homozygous, it's either both, it means both alleles are dominant or recessive. They are in the same state. And then when you talk about heterozygous, it means one thing. The alleles are not the same. They are not the same. They are not the same. So if they are not the same, what does that mean? It means if there is a dominant allele and a recessive one. So let me make an example. When you say an allele is in a homozygous state, and then as I said, we use the same capital letter to show a dominant allele, that will mean we have height. And then we say it's like this. That means it's tall. They are both tall in the whole same state. And then if they are recessive, we are going to use a small letter T. Another thing that will be quite useful when we are doing our process. When we are given a statement and then we are told color black is dominant over the color white, or the color blue is dominant over the color orange. What you do, we have two colors. We have, let's say we have blue, which is dominant, and then we have orange, which is recessive. Because we want to show, we want a genetic cross that is easy to read and understand, and then we are dealing with one characteristic. How are we going to write this as alleles? Because we know that alleles are this alternative forms, alternative expressions. What we do, we take the first letter of the dominant allele. So in this case, we have blue, which is dominant. That means in order for us to represent the dominant allele, we are going to use capital letter B. For the dominant allele, we are going to use capital letter B. Because we know that genes can either be dominant or alleles, can either be dominant or recessive. Then, if we use capital letter B for dominant, that means for a recessive gene now, for a recessive allele, because we are talking about one characteristic. So, for a dominant one, we are going to use capital letter B. And then for the recessive one, we are going to use a small letter. So whenever you are writing your genetic cross, and then you are told that it's complete dominance, and then you have to write down the cross, what you do, you first have to determine between those two characters, between those two expressions, which one is dominant over the other. And then you take the first letter of the dominant allele and make it a capital letter to represent dominancy. And then for the recessive one, you use the smaller letter, the lowercase letter. Okay? So, this is the homozygous state. This is homozygous dominant. This is homozygous recessive. But when you talk about heterozygous, When we talk about heterozygous, they are not the same. They are both dominant and recessive. So we are going to write it like this. This is how we express our heterozygous state. Remembering that in the homozygous explanation I said it's weak or it is masked by the dominant allele. It is weak or it is masked by the dominant allele. So when we talk about a recessive, we are talking about the weak or the allele that is masked by the dominant. So what we do now, we are going to write this in the state. So the capital letter B is stronger than the small letter b, and then it is able to cover it, and then only the bigger letter is expressed in the phenotype. Okay, so we have learned about all these new words. We have learned about heredity, inheritance, genetics, genes, phenotype, genotype, alleles, dominant, homozygous, and heterozygous. Now what we are going to do, what I'm going to explain is a monohybrid cross. I've been mentioning monohybrid crosses. What are monohybrid crosses? And then we are going to explain Mendel's law, the law of dominance, and the law of segregation. And then afterwards we are going to do maybe 2 examples for a monohybrid cross. And then we are going to talk about the 3 types of dominances. And then for today, that will be it. But then on our next video, we are going to talk about multiple alleles that will be known.